Bonjour, my name is Asatsu5, and a quick disclaimer before I start this review. I'm going to be using some French names and terminology, maybe not so much terminology, but names of brand names and villages and regions. And my French sucks. I have a little bit of French, but not a lot, and my tongue doesn't cooperate with me when I'm speaking English, much less French. So I'm going to be using some French names, and I'm probably going to butcher them. Please forgive me if you speak French and you're offended. I'm going to try my best. It's also worth mentioning that I actually have a French knife collection, and it happened completely by accident. And this is the newest addition to that collection. I have an Opinel here for reference. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Opinel because it's really related to the Nontron knife. By the way, this is the Nontron knife, and I probably butchered that name. But yes, these are very, very similar knives. They function the same way mechanically, but yet they're pretty different. First off, let's talk about the Opinel knife. The Opinel was developed in the late 1800s, I believe. I probably should have looked it up, but it was designed to be a poor man's knife, a knife of the people. And they accomplished that. These are very, very affordable knives, depending on what model you get. You know, it could be $10 to $20. And then if you want to get the fancier stuff or the bigger stuff, it can be more than that. But in general, these are very affordable knives, and they're the most famous knife brand, I'm willing to say, in France. Although it's a shame because there are so much more knives in France to really appreciate. France has an awesome knife heritage, and is very regional. Different regions in France kind of specialize in a particular knife that they came up with, and I'll talk more about that later. But yes, the Opinel is famous because it's affordable, it's a good beetle knife, and it's customizable. As you can see, there's a good bit of wood on this particular handle, and you can even buy versions of the Opinel that are not finished. They're like raw wood. It's basically the knife blade in a big chunk of wood, and you can customize them yourself. My brother bought a number 10, and he modified his, and this is what he came up with. It's a sheep's foot with this groove. It kind of looks like a fishing lure to me. I don't know why, but this is his customized Opinel. And there's other people who do a lot of fancy stuff with Opinels, and that's kind of their hobby. You can find it on Instagram. It's awesome to look at. But yes, this originated in the late 1800s, early 1900s, I believe. This Nontron knife, this brand, this style of knife, this knife in particular, that is the longest running cutlery company in France. By the way, it comes in this pretty cool gift box. It's black, but it kind of looks like black leather. It's very plain looking, so you can add a ribbon to it. You can give it to someone, and they don't know what it is until they open it. So, good job on the box. It's a very plain but elegant. I bought my knife from worldknives.com, which is an American website that specializes in selling knives from around the world. And they have Italian knives, Spanish knives, French knives, Scandinavian knives, German knives. They don't have the biggest selection of European knives, but it's probably the easiest or the best way to buy or get started collecting European knives. If you want some like traditional type knives, they don't really do tactical stuff as much. But yeah, it says right here, Nontron, France's oldest knife. How old is Nontron? It's over 500 years old. It's I think 16th century. It turns out to be like the 16th century. It's over 500 years old. There's only one other company in all genre of YouTube videos that I can think of that can compete with Nontron as far as having the oldest company in gear that's you know, the kind of stuff that we like, and that's Beretta. Beretta is the world's oldest continually running gun factory or gunsmith shop in the world. So this is very similar to that. It's the oldest French cutlery company in France. It is now owned by Forge de la Gueule. Forge de la Gueule, if I'm pronouncing that right. La Gueule. I can't say it. Dang it. It's a cool knife. That knife originated in La Gueule, and this knife originated in Nontron in the Pelagon region. The thing to realize about French knives is they're very regional oriented. Different regions of France, like the La Gueule region, the Sarre region, the Nontron or Pelagon region, Corsica, they have different regions that specialize in a particular knife where that knife was pretty much invented at. And so all these different places have kind of their own knife. And it's not to say these knives can't be made outside of their region, and the fact that they're made outside of their region doesn't make them less authentic than the ones that are made in the original region. But a lot of these knives, they're named after the region that they were invented or made at. Yes, this is the Nontron knife, a very, very old company. I hear or read that all the knife blades are forged, not stamped. The only thing stamped on these blades are possibly the ferrule and the logo. I'm going to open both of these knives up and show you how similar they are, but yet the different subtleties that make the Nontron, I believe, a superior knife. This is the Open L, obviously, number 8, I believe. And I forced a patina on it. It's carbon steel. Has the turning ferrule locking mechanism. This is the Nontron. There's the logo. It also has the turning ferrule locking mechanism. And let's see if I can get this to stand up. And it don't look like I'm going to be able to do that. I know what I can do. There we go. The blade shapes are very different. Not to say that one blade shape is good or bad, but I definitely have a favorite with the Nontron. The Nontron blade shape is a drop point that sharply drops down to a pointy tip. That gives you excellent tip control for penetrating cuts. You often don't think of traditional non-tactical knives, gentlemen's knives. You normally don't think about them penetrating stuff because the locking mechanism isn't that strong. You're generally not using it in a stabbing motion. But there are times where a good tip control and a penetrating tip is very, very conducive and makes the cut extremely more pleasurable to perform. This knife has a good point on it. You can definitely stab with it, but you don't have as good point control because you have a trailing tip. So something that I sometimes do is that I cut catalogs out of magazines and stuff, use the knife as an X-Acto knife, and the Nontron does that job extremely well. Not so much the Open L, although the Open L can do it. Also, when it comes to opening packages or envelopes, the Nontron again beats the Open L just because it has that lowered tip that's more in line with the center of the blade. It's not a trailing tip, it's more of a neutral tip. I prefer to like sheep's foot and Warncliffe's and this type of blade shape very well for EDC tasks. I don't think you can get a blade shape that's better than those 3 blade shapes for EDC task. Although it still has some belly for slicing, this one has a lot more belly. You can argue which one would be better for food prep. They would both do an awesome job. But some of the things that set the Nontron knife... Well, hang on, let me get started. Before I start on the review and telling you the differences between the blades, let me give you the stats and specifications. Those of you who subscribe to me know that I like to get these out of the way. So let's get started. First off, the weight is 0.25 pounds. The closed length is 4.675 inches. The blade length is 3.75 inches, and the handle material is ebony. Although it's worth mentioning, you can get these in different handle materials, just like the Opinel, but the more traditional handle material is boxwood. It's the wood that's in the immediate region where this knife is made, and it's a very light colored wood, and they do pyro engraving to put the logo on the handle. And pyro engraving is just a fancy term for woodboarding, but it sounds so much cooler than woodboarding. Now that I got that out of the way, by the way, I'll get the price at the end of the review. I'll tell you the price then. Those of you who are familiar with the Opinel, they are very, very affordable knives. The Nontron knife is not that affordable. And it's true that the Opinel has some expensive versions, but in general, the Nontron knife isn't as affordable as the Opinel. But there's some differences between these knives other than the blade shape. First off, I'm going to start off with a critique. I'm going to tell you a mechanical critique, and I'm going to tell you a just one of my kind of non-important critiques afterwards. I should have started with it first. But the Opinel knife actually closes or locks shut. So this knife can't open up when it's closed. Some of you might not like that feature because it's an extra step to opening the knife. But if you have an Opinel like mine, it flies open, with a little bit of a shake. I actually abused this knife a little bit and kind of wore the pivot out a little bit, so this knife does open up, a little bit too easy. So I like that option that it closes shut. The Nontron knife doesn't have this feature. As you can see, this does not shut closed. Also, something I want to mention now that I gave you that critique, I'm going to tell you a very non-important critique that I have, but I think it would make this knife so much cooler than it is, and this is a cool knife. It's said that each knife is made from start to finish by one of 6 cutlers, and or craftsmen, whatever you want to call them. And I think it would be really, really cool if somewhere on the blade, handle, ferrule, if they signed or maker's mark or initials on the knife, so you can say, "Ha ha, Jacques made this knife." That would be cool. That's something I think would be cool. Something else that I want to show you the difference between these two knives. And this is a big difference. It's a small detail that really helps. I'm going to get my magnifying glass, that's why I got it. As you can see, the the Opinel, it's basically just writing on wood. Apparently, I can't see any kind of washer or anything in there. And, I could be completely wrong, but if you look at the Nontron knife, let's see if you can see this. I think the magnifying glass is making it worse. But those actually washers, you can kind of see it there on either side of the blade, that lighter colored lines. It's actually some kind of washer system on the blade. It's not round, they're rectangular, but this makes for a very smooth opening knife. Of course, if you get this wet, the wood's going to swell, going to make it more difficult, but you basically need your thumb and forefinger to open this knife completely. Not something that's always possible with Opinel, and again, this has something to do with the wood. You can do it, but it's a little bit more difficult, and you feel a little bit more friction during the travel of the blade. So it's just something I noticed. It's something that I've really enjoyed. Got a little squeak in there. Not that squeak isn't always there, but sometimes it is. But it's just so easy to open. It's very pleasurable. Much smoother than a Sebenza that I've handled. I really don't have that. I'm not a big Sebenza fan. So this to me is a better gentleman's knife in certain aspects. Now, by the way, there's the logo. And the only thing that the pamphlet that came with my knife didn't mention is the history of that logo. And sadly, no one knows how that logo came up, but it's an arch with 3 dots. But very interesting. The Nontron knives have 3 handle shapes. They all are very similar, that they thicken up when you get close to the pivot. As with a Opinel, they're kind of much the same. It flares out towards the end here, but they're pretty much the same. You get, this is the ball end, or the ball handle shape. There's also one that looks like a clog, which is a type of wooden shoe, and there's one that looks like a fishtail. I mean, it literally looks like a fishtail. And there's also the double ferrule, which has ferrules on both ends, but the end is still skinnier than this end, so you know which one to open up. I don't have pictures of those at hand, but just to show you, the fishtail version is very similar to this, but it's carved out and finished a lot more, and it looks more like a fishtail than this. But you could probably modify this one to look like that. This is carbon steel. The stainless steel one, I don't know what steel they use in the stainless steel. It's probably some kind of inox, which is basically a French word, or abbreviation for a French word that means will not oxidize. But this one, in my pamphlet, it said it was a 440 series blade, but the information I got on the internet and the tang stamp says that it's made out of T12. Now focus. T12. T12 is a steel that I'm not very familiar with. I will tell you this. It has very, very decent edge holding capabilities. Now, I haven't just thrashed on this knife, but I did take the time to make several cuts, about 15 cuts into cardboard, and shaving right after each cut. And as you can probably see, I have bald spots on my arm because it's still shaving sharp. And this is where you get some of the difference in price. They finish, the finish on the Nontron knives is head over heels better than the Opinel. Opinels are good knives, but their edges are not so good. Their grind is good, and they're very fixable. You can fix them on an India stone, or if you have the skill, a belt sandal, but they're not razor sharp out of the box or from factory. They require some work. At least all the Opinels I've handled. My brother has 3 or 4 of them. I have. I've owned 2 of them. They both came with very crappy edges, not that sharp at all. And this knife should be razor sharp. No, it's getting some hair, but it's not as sharp as the Nontron. Although I've used this a lot more without sharpening it, and it's a lot older. But I will tell you this. The edge you get from the Nontron knife is razor sharp from the factory, and you can cut tissue paper with it. And I was able to cut tissue paper with it after cutting through the cardboard. And cutting tissue paper was kind of a tricky thing. I don't know if you ever tried it, but it's difficult because tissue tends to rip. I've also cut through paper towels with this. It's a little bit easier to do, and I've done this after shaving with it, after EDCing it, and after cutting cardboard, I was still able to cut tissue paper. So this T12 stuff, along with the grind and the edge and the blade geometry, equals a very, very good knife. To me, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the price is $85.95 from World of Knives. These knives range, I guess, anywhere from the 60s to over $100, depending on how ornate of a knife you get. Only the larger models come with the twirling ferrule. The smaller, kind of, I guess you could say, more keychain sized ones, doesn't mean they're supposed to be on a keychain, but they're more of that along that size. They don't have a ferrule at all, and they're true friction photos. Usually when we say friction photos, we picture a tang that extends into the handle and your grip holds it open. I guess technically that is a friction photo, but this penny knife, this is the style of knife it is a penny knife without the locking mechanism, is a true friction photo. It's truly held up by friction and nothing else. Also, it's worth mentioning that this blade retains in the blade and the handle very well after shaking it. Not to saying I can't shake it open, but it just normal up and down in your pocket, it's not going to come out. And I mentioned this one can close or lock closed. I did abuse this one a little bit, and it opens up very easily. So that's why I would like to see this one with a lock and close mechanism. I also mentioned that this one's made out of ebony. This one's beech. This one comes more traditionally in boxwood, although I saw some other handle material. And they also have laminate materials, was made out of more than one piece of wood, or maybe wood and aluminum and stuff. But yeah, that's it. I guess that's the review. I can ramble on a little bit longer if you'd like. But very elegant, beautiful in my opinion, and a higher performing knife. This Nontron is. I just talked like Yoda for some reason. I think it's worth the $86. It has nickel silver for the ferrule, and it's just very, very smooth and easy to open and close. It doesn't always squeak, but it's a good gentleman's knife. It's a good knife that you can EDC and not freak people out when you open packages. It's a very non-threatening knife, and so is the Opinel. I'm not telling you not to get the Opinel, because the Opinel, when finished by India stone or sharpening stones, when you finish the edge up and put a razor edge on it, it's an awesome knife. It's just not as awesome as the Nontron. So they're both good knives, but I just highly, highly recommend this Nontron. If you like the Opinel, you're going to love the Nontron, from the Pelagon region in France. And that's it. I hope y'all have a great day. I'm a Satsu5, and I'm out.